Hey, what's up guys? So today we're going to be mixing up heroes and the Red Dragon Archfiend. And the first silver here is going to go ahead and answer the question, is it actually viable and is it good? Well, once you see the Synchro be made on your opponent's turn, you'll automatically understand it can indeed be viable. With a Burning Soul, you literally just tell your opponent handshake time. So what the deck allows you to do is have a more powerful follow-up play to OTK. All you really need to do is go ahead and make this card, which is the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity, and it has this really good effect when, if this card is Synchro Summon, you could activate this card's effect, which I don't know why you wouldn't, but for the rest of the turn, your opponent can't activate cards. Also, your opponent cards that they control cannot activate their effects. So we can go ahead and wrap this one up. Don't worry, we'll give the guy another opportunity to activate his cards, because this is just going to go ahead and kind of answer the question, is the deck viable? And, well, a lot of you guys have probably seen the Spirals pull off Kali Yuga. We're going to go ahead and show off a few variety of matchups, as well as, well, the other duels will have a lot more than just that play, but I wanted to go ahead and serve the purpose to go ahead and show that off. Also, we are running on a newer cam setup. Let me know, guys, if you guys like this one better. I've rescaled the size of the text, so pretty much, with the exception of like maybe one or two insanely long pendulum cards, you guys should be able to fully read all of the monster effects now. I know, again, that was a request that a few of you guys did ask, and I deliver, man. Anyways, the goal with this deck is to basically make a play where turn 2 you happen to have Stratos to actually completely go off. If you guys have played some of the variants of the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend, they can make a super boss monster that just banishes everything your opponent has, but it takes like another few set of turns to fully go through everything, because you invest heavily into that one card. While it does have an insane effect and you just banish everything that your opponent has, at the end of the day, you need to be able to follow up with an OTK, because sometimes your opponent might draw that one card that somehow gets around it. I'm talking about those kaijus, right? But pretty much, if you make the card where they can't activate any effects, your opponent is going to quit immediately on you. I mean, that's just natural. But this is basically showing off what you can do with the following turn, which really allows you just to easily go into Malibane, because Stratos can Stratos, and then the next following turn, you Stratos into, of course, that Adjuster Goal, which is super expensive, by the way, same with this card, because short prints. But nonetheless, you get this, and then you can go ahead and pop everything. And then what you're able to go ahead and do is, with no monsters left on the field, well, these guys OTK very, very easy. And one of these duels, this guy makes an insane play, and we're going to go ahead and show it off. We're talking massive, massive amounts of damage over here. But nonetheless, the Resonators allow you to, of course, go for your plays of summoning your additional monsters. And there's also the classic Resonator card, which I do want to mention, because in this gameplay, we're not going to show off Shadow Mist, but I think that Shadow Mist is an excellent hero card, which is technically in the deck, but we don't have access to Dark Law necessarily. Obviously, with the new Master Rule, you have access to more zones, which makes things much easier. If you can happen to follow up or initiate with Hero Lives, which would involve the other Resonator instead of Crimson Resonator, but you can still kind of go off with certain plays. I was even thinking that Double Summon could be pretty nasty in this deck. You can even mix up Summoner Monk to go ahead and summon as an additional like target. I was even thinking like taking it even one step further, which if you really wanted to completely go crazy with a warrior variant, that way you can go ahead and dump the heroes and special summon another hero. Then you can go make the board plus, of course, have the assault, and then you can actually go into a polo sub, but it's very complex, and that's going to be for a separate video. This one is more focused in on the Red Dragon Archfiend Synchros. While that variant can still make them, it's going to be less consistent to go ahead and make them, but nonetheless, rip the Burning Soul. This card is actually really good. Like I mentioned before, if you open up with Burning Soul, you can basically stop your opponent from playing YuGioh, which is what of course, the Red Dragon boss Synchro does, which is the, oh gosh, the name is so long, Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity. If you make that card, 99% of the time your opponent just will leave the game. I mean, it's the same thing with Kali Yuga. If you play Spirals, there's very, very little outs for the most part. And then now, here is the Red Supernova Boss Dragon. And again, this card has an ability when your opponent activates a monster effect or your opponent declares an attack, quick effect, you just banish this card into everything your opponent has. And again, even though that effect is really insane, with the hero variant, again, adding access to Malibane is just really good. Plus, with Shadow Mist, you obviously can search your other heroes and kind of go off from there as well. But anyways, I got one more last play for you guys, which is versus the Raid Raptor over here. And he made that 6,000 attack Red Nova and completely obliterated his opponent. But I got one more replay over here, which the guy makes a questionable play. I think he thought the card would still get its effect because it would go like off board. But nonetheless, it doesn't really matter. There's just one more play, and then of course I'll give you guys the deck profile in case any of you guys do want to go ahead and mess around with this, because while I do want to record some meta stuff, I want to go ahead and showcase off some other variants that would be much better, with of course that new Master Rule taking place, which everyone is mostly pretty happy about, although again, Librarian makes things really broken. I think what this guy should have done, I actually didn't check his extra, does he even have, okay, he doesn't even have Link Karibo. I was going to say, it would have been better just to go ahead instead of just making this card go away, because even though it has 100 attack, I would have kept it up on board because no monsters left on the field is a terrible idea, because who plays Gorse in 2020? Dude, no one played Gorse in 2019 even. But nonetheless, this card is also really insane, just being able to banish this card and then add a Fiend type tuner with 15 or less from your deck to your hand, which basically just lets you go off with the Resonator cards. But again, it's mostly just for the heroes access, enabling you to go ahead and have a huge follow-up turn, if you guys get what I'm saying, which normally the Red Dragon Archfiend didn't have. You'd invest everything into one, which I made a video on, which is still a really cool way to play the deck, but I think this is overall probably a little bit more optimal because, again, you just pop board and then you're going to be good to go. And on top of that, you can make this card, then your opponent cannot respond to this card. And then on top of that, because your opponent can't activate, activate this for the rest of the turn, you can't activate cards, and then pretty much you will be good to go. But anyways, now that you guys have seen the gameplay, let me go and hook you guys up with the deck profile. And shout out to my boy YuGioh for hooking me up with the plays as well as the deck profile over here, and I'll link him down below if you guys want to check him out. He's always doing spicy stuff here. Anyways, first off, obviously Adjuster Gold or Adjusted Gold here. This is all just, it helps out the consistency of the deck for a follow-up play, because again, like I mentioned several times, if you just invest your play into this, sometimes your opponent will have another out. Again, Kaiju is basically the thing. But anyways, we got 3 copies of Stratos. Again, you Stratos into Stratos, then that Stratos will go into Adjuster Gold. I'm sorry, call it Adjuster Gold, the OCG thing. Anyways, pretty self-explanatory. This card is just really insane. It's just easily special sub in the card, and then on top of it, you banish it and add another one. But if you attempt this, you cannot special sub monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except for Synchro monsters. So keep that in mind. You do have to wait one turn. That's why it's perfect to go for Malibane the following turn. Also, I was thinking that because you are locked into Synchros, if you decide to go ahead and make a variant with, I think Hero Lives would be an excellent addition to this deck. Although keep in mind, it will ruin your Crimson Resonator plays sometimes, because depending on, of course, what you're playing. I was even thinking double summon from this deck. Again, this is probably a topic for another day where I was talking about like a soul, and you can do even crazier stuff. But yeah, if you go ahead and utilize Shadow Mist with a mass change, if you can go for like any of these plays, I mean, heck, you make this, your opponent is going to go ahead and say GG anyways. But if you can follow like any, even like a Hot Red plus a copy of Dark Law. Just Dark Law plus 1 negate is still relatively strong in Yu-Gi-Oh! I would say even Apollo's Dark Law is still very powerful as well. I just think Dark Law is one of the strongest Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards to come out in like the longest time, even though it's a little bit old of our card. And then we got 2 copies of Dark Resonator. Oh, by the way, this card is basically just used at the end of the day for, of course, going for Shadows, which searches out this card anyways. And then it also has another alert target. And then, of course, we got 2 copies of Dark Resonator, old school card. And then we've got 1 copy of the Creation Resonator. So if you control level 8 or higher, you just special summon it, which is pretty much all the time in the deck, unless, of course, you're getting stopped. And then we have 3 copies of Crimson Resonator, which is one of the best cards. This one just special summon it. And then if the only other monster controls exactly 1 Dark Dragon Secret monster, you special summon another 2 Resonator monsters from your hand and or deck, which is insane. And then we have 1 copy of Chain Resonator, 3 copies of the Synchron Resonator. And then a lot Melodies are just kind of just free special summons at the end of the day. Then 3 copies of E-Call for, of course, your Stratos. And then 3 copies of Allure. Keep in mind, you can, if you have multiple copies of Stratos, you can still Stratos into like Shadow Mist and then just Allure it off, because you just really are using it for that for the most part in this build. But I did want to briefly mention this card. I'll get to that in a second. But then 3 Allures and then 1 Dark Call, obviously for your Duster Gold. 3 copies of the Resonator Call. 1 copy of Pot of Avarice. This is actually a 40 card deck. It's just for the Master Rule. And then, of course, we've got 1 Pot of Avarice, 3 copies of the Command Resonator, 3 copies of Burning Soul, which if you open up with this card, you basically are going to, and you're going first, if your opponent doesn't stop you, they just give you the handshake. And then we have Red Rain over here, which is, okay, it lets you banish all monsters on the field if you control a level 8 or higher Synchro monster, which is quite great. You don't actually banish your monsters, so that monster can stay up on the board. And then if a Dark Dragon Synchro monster is synchro summoned to your field while this card's in your graveyard, you can add this card to your hand, so you can reutilize this. Although Scrap Iron Signal sometimes can be better in some circumstances because it is a counter trap card. That's like the only side that's a little bit better, because this card, while it does banish everything that your opponent has, I mean, the most important things in people's decks are usually monster effects, and this can stop that, and this can be reutilized already. That's already built into it. For the extra deck, though, we got Malipane, 2 copies of King Calamity, and then we got the red Supernova Boss Dragon, and red Nova Dragon, 1 copy of the Drago Saitos, the Corrupted Nether Soul Dragon. I didn't get to go over this card's effect, but can't be destroyed by battle. When it destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends to the graveyard, you can activate this effect. It can attack a second attack on your opponent's monster in a row. Then during your standby phase, you can target a face-up monster opponent controls that's attacking against half its current attack, and if it does, inflict damage that equal to that lost attack. But it's basically just to attack twice for the most part, even though you're going to OTK quite easy in this deck anyways. We got Hot Red Dragon Archfiend being 2 copies of that, 2 copies of Abyss, 2 copies of the Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend, and 3 copies of Red Rising Dragon, one of the newer cards as well. But lastly, I did want to mention, if you did want to go ahead and go for the Dark Law play, you can use it in 2 different ways. You could Red Resonator, you can also do a double summon play, but this would also really help out because this card lets you just go ahead and special this, which would proc your effect. That way you'd be able to also leave this card up on board, then your following turn you can go ahead and search the Stratos, which would then end up being the same play at the end of the day. You would just need some other way to go ahead and summon this. There are a lot of other ways you can utilize it. So in fact, you could even go for Summoner Monk, because again, you're not summoning it that turn. The fusion, you summon it during your opponent's turn, so you can even go Summoner Monk, go ahead and grab that, and on top of that you can throw a card into the graveyard, which maybe you can think of other cards that you can utilize in the graveyard as well. But anyways, that's it for the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like on it. If you are new here, hit subscribe, turn on that bell so you don't miss out on new Yu-Gi-Oh builds over here. And if you guys want to send me in other replays, just like my homie Stardust YuGioh, and once again, shout outs and thanks, man. If you guys want to check him out, he'll also be linked down below. But feel free to send in some replays if you'd like to. Someone sent me in some Spiral so I don't have to play that deck because I'm gonna fall asleep. I've actually seen it so much, I probably should have just used the footage that I got wrecked by when they Kali Yuga me. But I mean, at the end of the day, that's how Yu-Gi-Oh's played, man. Just don't let your opponent play, and you'll definitely be winning games. But thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have a good one. Peace.